Here we go.
In a world where Carolina Panthers fans have an insatiable thirst for Panthers news and opinions, only one podcast roars ferociously. It's the C3 Panthers Podcast.
What is the deal, Panther fans? You're here for the C3 Panthers Podcast. It's Tuesday night. It's 9 p.m. and it's the longest running Panthers podcast. A special night as we kick off our 8th season as a show. We don't miss a week, we don't miss a beat, and we don't miss any Panther news. And I always make sure I chop it up with my homeboys. Cody Lashney in the house. I'm glad to have you as part of the crew heading into our 8th season.
Tony Dunn, I'm glad to be a part of the crew heading into the 8th season. I love being here on a Tuesday night talking Panthers football with the most lit Panther fans on YouTube, and they're all here like they always are. Underground West, Sarah Taylor, God of Blackness, Brad Dugan, Trill Warren, 10 Tizzy, of course, Tony Dunn. Ain't nothing to it but to do it, brother. Let's roll.
All right, if we could get a little thumbs up from the YouTube chat, not only on the window on our show, but also letting us know that the audio is okay. Greg, the Bat Daddy, are you in the house tonight?
I am in the house tonight. I've been in the house most of the day, man. Had a Tuesday off. So I had something to look forward to other than this show today, man. Like, usually it's the only thing I have to look forward to on Tuesdays. But good day off so far. Played a little golf.
Right on. Oh, a little golf. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And we also have CK. How you doing, my friend? I think. Is he not here yet?
He dropped out, but he
dropped out, came back on. All right, guys. Tonight's show is This is 18.1, guy. No, what are we? 20.1. Because we're in the 2020 calendar year for us anyway. Like I said, it's the 8th season, the longest running Panthers podcast. And I tell you, I don't know if you guys think we're the best, but I tell you, we are the most consistent. We won't quit. Even if you don't listen, we'll keep talking all night damn long. And we want you to be part of that conversation by calling into the Catcalls line. The number's 252-228-5098. You can follow me on Twitter at @cat_chronicles, and make sure you sub up on YouTube. Hit the bell, get notifications for any time we put out a video. We're going to start putting out some more shorts, I think, as well as check us out on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever the hell you get your podcast at. Guys, tonight's show is to pay or not to pay. And we have there's a little context for it, is that obviously we're going to be talking about Christian McCaffrey and should we pay or not pay, or what that will do to the organization. But also more news on the Greg Olsen story, and Cam Newton has made an appearance at the Super Bowl, and it's got some of our hopes up, my hopes, that I'm right and Cody is wrong. That's kind of where I'm at on it. So let's kick off the show talking about this. Cody, I'm going to go ahead and put up the image right here of Derrick Henry today. It comes out is the Gridiron or somebody like that put out that Derrick Henry has announced that Zeke's number is the floor. And Derrick Henry is coming off the rushing title, right? He's had the most rushing yards in the season. He was unstoppable as the season went on, at least until that final game against Kansas City. But he's in the final year of his contract. He does not have the luxury, I guess, like Christian McCaffrey, or the Panthers have the luxury of not having to deal with Christian McCaffrey just yet. The Tennessee Titans do not for Derrick Henry. Is Derrick Henry going to get more money than Zeke Elliott?
Yeah, because that's just the nature of the beast. It's the next man up. It doesn't matter if you're talking corner, defensive tackle, quarterback. The next guy to get paid is going to be the highest. So I think right now we would probably all agree that in light of the Super Bowl, which we haven't talked about yet, that Patrick Mahomes probably deserves to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, right? Well, yeah, he should. But the quarterback that signs a contract after Patrick Mahomes will be paid higher than him. And that's just
not if he's not as good, though. I don't believe that's the
I
case.
mean, I can, but here's the deal.
You're really right, though.
It doesn't matter who signs first. If Deshaun Watson signs first, Mahomes is going to have a bigger contract.
Right.
If Mahomes signs first, then Watson's going to have a bigger contract. So, yeah, that's why this isn't surprising. But I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is, if this is indeed true, and you're Christian McCaffrey, and you had 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, I mean, we haven't heard any inklings of this yet. But what if Christian says, hey, I'm in the prime of my life. I just proved to you what kind of worth I am to have on your football team when you didn't have Cam Newton, when you didn't have a bunch of your playmakers, when your offensive line was subpar. I mean, there's never been a better time for Christian McCaffrey than right now. So if at any point in time, Christian says, well, I want more money, then, are the Carolina Panthers in the midst of a rebuild, we're letting all these players move on and retire and whatever. In the midst of a rebuild, is it smart to pay Christian McCaffrey $100 million over the next 4 or 5 years? And I think that it's a legitimate question.
It is a good question. I think going back to the Derrick Henry thing, though, I don't think that he's going to set the market. Like, he had a good year this year, but this is his 4th season, and it's the first time he's had a breakout year like that. I don't think he's the running back that resets the market. I think they may franchise him and then see if he does it again, and then maybe pay him. But you're right. Whoever gets paid last is going to be the one who gets paid the highest. As far as Christian McCaffrey goes, man, if you're going to do a rebuild, I think that you have to plant your flag on one player, and I don't know if we're planning on doing that with Cam Newton, even though I know he's coming back next year. So it really depends on. Well, we think he's coming back next year. So if he's coming back to play his last year, and then we have a rookie quarterback for 5 years after that, it might not be a bad idea to put your big money into a guy like Christian McCaffrey and have him be the rock, because you want to be a quarterback for a while, and there's no other superstars because Kuechly just left and Olsen just left, and Thomas Davis not there. Like, there's no real stars to pay. So I say you pay Christian McCaffrey, let him set the market.
Well, the complicating factor when it comes to Christian McCaffrey is versus Derrick Henry, and I would be cautious if I was a team just paying Derrick Henry. I think I would be a little cautious even if I was the Cowboys, what they did, how much they gave Zeke. I understand that Zeke did drive that offense just like Derrick Henry drives that offense, but is that when that style of runner, at some point he's going to fall off a cliff. That's why he's going to want to get paid, right? On top of that, I just don't know how much of a comp it is, because I think Christian McCaffrey leans more towards the Le'Veon Bell comp. And that is, Le'Veon Bell's continued argument is, hey, you can't just pay me based on running backs because I do so much more than that. And Christian McCaffrey, I think, is the quintessential example of that. Is really, he's a receiver and a running back and an everything.
How about this? He's just a matchup nightmare.
Yeah.
He's just a matchup nightmare. I mean, he's proven to do all the things that all of his detractors said he never would. He can run between the tackles. I mean, he can stiff arm you, put you in the dirt, juke you out of your shoes. And, I mean, to be honest, what's even crazy and even scarier for opposing NFL defenses is that I still don't think that we've seen the full potential of what Christian McCaffrey can do. I mean, if you look at what, I watch a lot of college football. If you look at how Joe Brady's offense used LSU's running back, man, there were a lot of really innovative passing plays and finding ways to get them the ball in space and doing a lot of different new things. And dude, I couldn't imagine what someone like Joe Brady would be able to do with a talent like Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, it's not like we're saying Christian doesn't deserve whatever new money he's going to get paid. I just think, man, when you look at all the holes on the team right now that we have to, one, fill in free agency, and to be able to draft, which we have a normal number of draft picks, not any more or any less. Do you want to put that much money on a running back when, look at the running backs in the Super Bowl. Raheem Mostert, Damian Williams, both of them were undrafted. And by the way, today, the Panthers signed Reggie Bonifant to another deal.
So he can do nothing. Let me see if I can get this.
It's a new regime, man. He's
going to keep Cameron Spain's seat warm. Because,
All right, let me see if I can get this video. I want to see if I got. I just tried to quick load this Christian McCaffrey video. Let me see if. All right, here it is. Hold on. Did you hear that?
No, everything.
No.
Hold on. Let me see. Okay.
You are the best running back in the game.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna start it again. All right.
By the way, you can't argue. I believe in Saquon.
What about Saquon
but I hope Saquon gets to be where he is now.
Saquon will say the same thing, and deservingly so. But that's just the competitor in us. He's a guy. All these guys around the league. There's so many great backs that I really enjoy watching.
But they don't do everything like you. You do everything.
I think he's the most complete back in football, running, catching. Saquon has something to say. But if you're talking about a guy that's going to tote the mail, there's a guy in Dallas wearing 21 that I'd probably defer to as far as toting the mail.
21?
Absolutely.
You would take Zeke before you took Christian McCaffrey?
I want to pound the rock. I don't need my running back to catch the ball.
Hold on, time out.
What kind of does he not know who he's sitting beside?
You can run it. I just prefer 21.
Boog, Zeke might be a top 5 back. Maybe. What? Hold on.
What about all the off-the-field drama? You don't have that with
Saquon's
McCaffrey.
the most talented. Saquon's way more talented than Zeke. Stop.
Oh, my word. Lord have mercy.
So I just had the best year, but I'm not the most talented?
I think that's the best year. I just had a good year.
So the reason I play this, the reason I play that video with him countering with that is he's got to sit there beside Booger McFarland picking his nose for ideas. And he's got to hear that kind of stupid shit. And he did say, I'm the best running back in the league. And then on top of that, he was not shy to say, so I put up the best numbers. I'm not the best? ?
Yeah.
So this idea, I was speaking with somebody at work today, and they told me that they just don't think that CMC is the type of guy that's going to saddle this team with an unnecessary contract and that he won't hold out. And I told him that he was a racist. Because
he was just saying that because he's a white boy.
I think so. Is that what evidence do you have that Christian McCaffrey does not care about getting paid or any? We don't have anything to support that.
100%. It's all based in people's preconceived notions. Even Max Kellerman and Booger McFarland. It really, this year, it didn't matter to them. Because Booger felt like Zeke was the best running back in the NFL. And Max Kellerman wasn't ever going to say anyone other than Saquon Barkley. And it goes back to that. Yeah, there are a lot of stereotypes and preconceived notions that people just run with because they think that's the gospel. But yeah, I think I agree with you, Tony. I think it could very easily pan out differently.
We listened to an audio clip last week or 2 weeks ago, and the guy referenced that McCaffrey's agent is the same agent that represented Chris Johnson, and he had a training camp holdout. And he was able to reset the market as a running back. But also that Christian McCaffrey was very conscious and aware of the stakes going into the NFL draft. And he was one of the first guys that kind of set that trend of guys sitting out bowl games. So it's not like Christian McCaffrey is naive to the monetary aspects of the NFL. And if you are him, while you are probably going to have several more good years, this is a historic year. And if Derrick Henry is looking at his year as an endorsement or where you give somebody a mandate to pay him top numbers, I think Christian McCaffrey is thinking the same thing.
Yeah, why wouldn't he be? He comes from money. He knows that, you got to make it. His dad was playing a different time, but I'm sure for the time made quite a bit of money. He's definitely got to.
All right, CK, your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey's payday. To pay or not to pay?
I don't see how you can have the back-to-back years that he has and still expect to pay him the rookie amount. Now, there is an interesting storyline we haven't actually had a chance to even consider, and that is, for instance, what's going on with the Chiefs, as we've talked about, right? The Chiefs are saying that they don't want to provide a new contract to Patrick Mahomes. And it's not about not wanting to pay him. It's about there's a huge unknown with the CBA. Mm-hmm. Huge. And if you lock yourself in for a long-term major mega deal with one of these players without really knowing what the future holds, that's what's tough. The next few years are going to be really interesting with these potential free agents, these mega stars that are playing in a rookie deal. All of that's going to be really interesting to find out how it's handled, because the CBA changes a large amount of this, and I think that that's something that a lot of people aren't thinking about.
Well, do you think the CBA is going to change current contracts or just contracts moving forward?
I think it's going to allow for players to. I think without knowing a lot about it, it's the exact reason Kansas City is saying that they're not going to pay Patrick Mahomes this offseason is because they just don't. I mean, they're not going to come out and say it, but if you read between the lines based on what's been said, is that the CBA will be active in the next couple of years. And so if you are locking yourself into that, you don't know what you're locking yourself into. And I know your question is, how does it affect current contracts? Well, we don't know. Right. It will. It's going to affect everyone. It's going to affect every single person.
Yeah, but likely contracts are still going to continue to expand and go up. So I don't know if you're necessarily going to get a bad deal when it comes to. I think you're going to see more stuff with the franchise tag potentially, and like you said, those early draft picks. Are there ways for them to get in and out of their contract or hit free agency, have an option earlier or something? But I can't imagine contracts contracting.
Yeah. Well, it's not a matter of contracting. It's a matter of what power do the players then hold over their current contract. There's so many things, like how many players can. I mean, what power can they hold over a forced release or something along those lines? There's a lot of different things that you could come into, and I just don't know what to expect with it.
Yeah. It's going to be insane.
So do you think that Christian McCaffrey and these guys are going to be patient enough to wait? Now, Christian McCaffrey is a different story than Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry is essentially a free agent. Christian McCaffrey, they could just be jerky about, or not even be jerky. They could just say, hey, we'd like to wait for the CBA before we lock in anything, and we have you for one more year, and obviously we want you to be a giant part of things going forward, but we're not at a stage right now where you can also bully us into paying you, because you could just say, all right, if you're going to try to bully us, then we're just going to tank.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. I think one of the things that you have to, play into this here, and I know we haven't talked about Cam Newton yet, but you're essentially going to be asking your quarterback and your star running back to play on a highly discounted contract going into this year with really not a whole lot of guarantees. I know, especially for Christian, I think they go down as his contract goes forward. I could be wrong about that, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we would love to have a Christian. I'm even wondering if maybe they sign him to a deal that isn't tops, but like maybe around second or third highest paid running back money. If they do a good faith deal now and come to him and say, okay, listen, us coming to you early and paying you now, it's a sign of good faith. We want to get to you before all of these other contracts blow up and go insane. As a kind of like how the Philadelphia Eagles did with Carson Wentz. I mean, they basically decided to pay him early to try and get ahead of the curve in quarterback money. So I wonder if there could be something similar done with Christian, but I don't know, man. We have a lot of holes on our team right now, and that's part.
Well, let's ask that question, Cody. Is while he deserves to get paid, you raised a question that the football heads have been saying on Twitter in lieu of that Super Bowl game. Is do you want to sink that kind of money in a running back? But do you get to say that about Christian McCaffrey? Because I think there's a difference between being serviceable and being sensational.
Yeah, the question is, how much do you need sensational? I mean, do any of the running backs on the Chiefs and the 49ers, are any of them even close to the talent that Christian McCaffrey is? I don't think so. But neither of them needed a Christian McCaffrey. Like, it's a real brass.
But, the Kansas City didn't strike fear into your heart with their running game this year.
No, they didn't. But, again, the point is, like, this is not an indictment on McCaffrey. We all know that the dude is the best running back in the NFL right now, bar none. I mean, he might not be built like Derrick Henry, but Christian McCaffrey, he can do more than everyone else. And when you have a player like that, yeah, he's better than almost everybody at his position. But at the end of the day, it's icing on top of the cake. It's a luxury position, and it's not necessarily that you have to have a talent like Christian McCaffrey to be successful. And especially if it's going to set you back, what, $100 million? I mean,
so here's one thing. Can I address something real quick with Tony? Like, you had said that guy earlier said you didn't think CMC was the type to hold out. And, we had the exact conversation with a gentleman at work. And I appreciate your mentality there, because that was actually a part of the conversation. Is it a race thing, or is it that we believe that he's got a different personality than these guys? And one of the things I was thinking about is a lot of these guys that are holding out have not been in an environment where they've been raised well. Like, right, Christian McCaffrey's dad played in the NFL, right? It's not like these guys are searching for generational wealth, where Christian McCaffrey is kind of bred into this world. And so that would be the reason that I could see him possibly not holding out, is because, I mean, let's be honest, do they need it? He's accustomed to a certain way of life already. And these other guys are playing for the ability to provide for the rest of their lives, where Christian McCaffrey, I'm not saying he's not able to do that, but it feels different. But I would agree that I think he's still going to hold out. I wanted to address that. Earlier I heard it. I couldn't respond to it, but.
Yeah, I think, though, and I'm kind of with what Cody was saying, is that you either believe you already have an idea about what you think he is as a person or not. And while I don't necessarily think it's like this person being a racist, but for some reason it's kind of, it's that that innuendo, of, yeah. Well, these, he's cerebral versus he's athletic. Those things, I don't think anybody ever intends to be, blatantly racist when they do those types of things. But my point is, we just don't. I think you just gave me the only argument that I would consider right now, is just that since he comes from money, he may not be as interested in money. That's the best argument I've heard. Not, he just doesn't seem like the type of guy. Because we don't know anything about him other than he's pretty quiet, and he doesn't overly showboat, and that he kind of is clean cut when it comes, very polished when it comes to the way he addresses the media and things. But we don't. I mean, for all we know, he could be a big asshole.
He could. But I like his confidence on that interview you guys were talking about, though, where he said, just because my numbers are the best, I'm not the most talented. That I think that kind of gives us a glimpse into how he feels about himself, which isn't a bad thing. I think most guys in the NFL are going to say that they're the best at their position, or have the capability of being the best if preparation meets, expectations. And so, I think I still think that he has the capability of holding out. I still think he could very well have the personality for that. I'm just saying that if you want to believe that personality-wise, he may not, and you don't think that, and you're trying to not look at it from the perspective of, oh, he's a white guy, or, Greg Olsen didn't hold out. He did it this way, and you kind of use all these examples, and then you then point out Zeke, who held out, and Le'Veon Bell, who held out. That does become almost race-related if you start looking at it that way. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of Christian McCaffrey doesn't need, let's be honest, he's going to be paid more money than, he's ever seen or his father's ever seen. So let's be fair about this. I think he is setting a bar.
I think if they say he doesn't seem like the type of guy that would do that, I think if they believe that because his personality has never seemed to be like, this is about me. He doesn't seem, if you don't believe he's particularly ego driven, then I think those are potentials but I think I just don't see Christian McCaffrey rolling over completely. He might not even have to hold out. He might just say, don't come to me with no bullshit. Like, you better come correct, and let's not make a scene out of this. He's got the Panthers by the balls a little bit when it comes to star power. And speaking of that star power, guys, there's been another thing and another man that we love, and I was saying this on the radio, is I'm not yet emotionally attached to Christian McCaffrey like I am Cam Newton. Yeah. I like Christian McCaffrey. I think he's a fantastic player, and I'm so happy we got him because there ain't been nothing to cheer for but him. But I have not yet emotionally invested myself as much as I have with Cam Newton. So speaking of Cam Newton, is
one of the most hotly debated or speculated upon topics, I think maybe behind, probably where's Tom Brady playing next year? Correct. And number two would be
Cam Newton, guys, was out on Radio Row doing the Miami thing, right? And it was guys, has any of your perception changed after you've heard some of the things? I saw Cam Newton in a lot of commercials at the Super Bowl. He was very visible.
Yeah. But you know what my biggest problem with that was? It's not Cam Newton's presence. It's the lack of the Panthers' coverage of him. Like Christian McCaffrey, there was a highlight of him walking into Radio Row and everything he did at Radio Row. But their Walter Payton Man of the Year, they had no kind of highlights on whatsoever. None. If you go to their website, there is no mention of Cam Newton. No mention of him talking about how he's going to be in Carolina. His goal is to be there. And that bugs me more than anything. And if I were Cam, that would bug the heck out of me too. I'm sitting here telling the world that I dedicate my life to you guys, that I want to be a Carolina Panther, and you guys aren't even going to have any type of coverage of me and what I'm doing for our organization out here, representing for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. That just bugged the ever-living heck out of me, man.
All right, let's listen to this. This is Cam Newton on, I think, the Tiki Barber.
And one of the most hotly debated or speculated upon topics, I think maybe behind, probably where's Tom Brady playing next year? Correct. And number two would be, where's Cam playing? Now we know that you want to play and that you're taking the steps to make sure that you're able to play. Right. Are you going to be back in Carolina? Like, are you sure you're going to be a Panther?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You talked to Matt Rule yet?
Yes, sir. Huh? As a matter of fact, it's devastating to not have the coach who drafted you, but at the same time, you got to turn the page. Had an unbelievable conversation with Marty Herney, GM, David Tepper, the owner, as well as, Coach Rule, the new head coach. And, I left that meeting inspired. Not only, and I told them, I said, you won't find another person in that locker room with more to prove, not only to you, but I got to prove to myself. Yeah. I see a lot of, young guns out here now. Look at Patrick Mahomes, even Garoppolo for that matter. And when you look at the state of where the quarterback position is, I was a minority, coming into the league now, and now I'm part of the majority of guys that are able to run and do athletic things and attack the defense in many ways than one just sitting back there and throwing the football.
Yeah. All right. So that's Cam Newton with absolutely. He expects to be back, wants to be back as a Panther. And 350 guacamole on a bratwurst, I'm going to say no go. Keep your cultures separate. None of that what is it? That's a fusion food right there, is guacamole on bratwurst. But guys, after hearing that from Cam Newton, odds going up or down that Cam Newton is a Carolina Panther next year, or is this just smoke? Muted.
Pardon me.
Okay.
So
and Greg might be muted not muted, but just missing. Greg, say hello. Yep, we can't hear you anymore. The weekly Greg saying, "Please listen to me. Please listen to me."
So this is my thoughts on this whole deal. There's one, I love it. Like, a part of me breathes a sigh of relief. I have no reason to not believe Cam Newton. But there is, like, and look, forgive me, this is just the way my brain is wired. Call me a conspiracy theory if you want. But I think Cam Newton wants to play in Carolina next year. And this was a way of kind of forcing his hand, getting Panther fans excited about the prospect of Cam Newton coming back, even though the Panthers haven't really decided on anything yet. So it was almost maybe kind of like a power move made by Cam Newton. Now, I don't know this. I'm not even saying this is what I believe. I'm just kind of throwing this out there. That thought didn't cross my mind. But, yeah, man, I mean, the fact that he said he had a meeting with David Tepper, Matt Rule, Marty Herney, and he laid himself out, and he said that he had stuff to prove to himself. And I think that's when Cam Newton can be the most dangerous. And especially, you know, he's been quoted a few times this week as having said there's a newness to the football team that's exciting. It's a new era. There are new people associated with the football team. His offensive coordinator is a year younger than he is. So there's a lot of reasons for Cam Newton to be excited about everything going on right now. And I think at a moment in time where so many brand name faces of the Carolina Panthers, at a moment in time when they're all kind of hitting the exit button, Cam wants to be a permanent fixture of the Panthers that will be able to transition last era into this era. And I think that's important to him. So I'm still a little nervous just because we haven't heard anything in a more official capacity, but it's definitely a start, and it's certainly good news.
Yeah. John Kidco Barrera says, to be fair, the Panthers Facebook page did cover Cam walking the red carpet for NFL honors. Now, when it comes back to the Cam Newton situation, I think Sarah Taylor said something that was smart. She says a lot of smart things, but it was Rex Smith. I don't think there's any way to answer the question. If Cam says he doesn't know, the media is going to go crazy. And I think that we could, is that my initial thought was some validation from my position where I've said that Cam Newton is going to be a Carolina Panther, and I have been trying to fend off the arguments of Cody, saying that more and more we're likely not to see Cam Newton. But when I hear Cam Newton say this, initially I want to say, hey, this is a good thing. At least it did come from Cam. If it would have been from the Panthers or the coach or the owner, then it's just lip service, because we heard a kind of counter story from Greg Olsen on the departure from Carolina. But I think this is more and more news that, one, Cam is not afraid to play the final year of his contract. And that has been one of the things that initially started this conversation of Cam not being a Carolina Panther. And I really think at this point it's up to the Carolina Panthers if Cam Newton is the quarterback rather than Cam Newton or anybody. Do they want to trade and just move on? Do they want to give it a go? And I got to say this. If I'm Matt Rule, I'm saying give me Cam Newton. If I'm Joe Brady, I'm saying give me Cam Newton. Give me a known a known commodity, and let's do something with. CK, after hearing these comments from Cam Newton, are you more or where are you at? Have you moved towards or away from Cam Newton? Because I know that Cody have been convincing you a lot that the time looks like it's nearing.
I'm so the farther away from that interview I got, after that interview, I was stoked, right? Like we had our entire conversation about Cam Newton and the uncertainty surrounding him for our Greg Olsen reaction video. And I cut all that stuff out, right? Because I was like, oh, Cam Newton's here for sure. No reason to even put that stuff in there anymore, because that uncertainty is so much slimmer. But then, and obviously the Facebook coverage, and then I saw the lack of Cam Newton on the Panthers app. Like I saw, Bill Voth post something about Cam whispering to Russell Wilson, but I mean, outside of that, I just don't feel like I saw enough of what Cam was doing out there, with his, his speech that he was giving. Undisputed covered that, but not the Panthers, at least from what I saw. And forgive me if you guys saw that. So I became a little more weary that they're still holding all the cards, right? Obviously, you don't want to tip your hand too much, because from my understanding, they want to work him out in March to see where he's at and then make the decision at that point. So
that is the report, right? And that makes sense because look, the league year starts in March.
Mm-hmm.
And but I get scared too. What do those workouts truly show? If he is continuing to have problems with his foot, could he mask it? Would he? I don't know. But look, because I think that the needle swung a little bit back in favor of me, Cam Newton, being a Carolina Panther.
Absolutely. And like you said, I mean, the Panthers are going to see the reaction that Panther Nation had to Cam Newton saying that, which was majority positive. And so when you see that and you see the excitement and the elation, all of a sudden a dead Panthers fan base all of a sudden came alive, because that was the first good news, as everybody was saying on that post, that we've heard about our team in a hot minute. Outside of the uncertainty surrounding head coaches and the departure of Greg Olsen and Luke, that put a pretty big damper on our offseason already. And so that was an excitement that we had. And I'm convinced he's still going to be a Panther. The way I look at it is Matt Rule wants to win. At the end of the day, that's what his goal is. And if you have the ability to have a veteran quarterback who can – you can focus on other areas when you talk about a rebuild, but he gives you the best opportunity to win now. And I guarantee you, Joe Brady is looking to win now, because I'm sure that he wants to be a head coach sooner rather than later. Matt Rule wants to win now because, he's got a lot of proof, because 3 years is a long time in the NFL before you're successful. And so I'm sure he wants to kind of knock that narrative out that he can't be successful in the first 2 years of a program.
Yeah, let me tell you this, is I don't care what assurances David Tepper has given Matt Rule and this coaching staff, is that if we go out and we're 2-14 next year, and then we're 4-12 the following year, I'm not saying that we should move on. I'm not saying that David Tepper will, but I promise you that fan base will be ready. That 3 years is a long time in being a fan. And I tell you this, is it feels like a long time since the Carolina Panthers have been relevant, even though we've had 2 good starts. Those fool's gold starts are easily taken away. It feels like a million years ago since we've seen a Panthers team that we feel confident in. And I just don't know how much a fan base, particularly I would say, as fickle as the Carolina Panther fan base is. The Carolina Panther fan base, they don't even get angry half the time. They just stop paying attention.
Yeah. Well, you got to understand, a lot of these other fan bases are just run thick with their blood. They're just
generational. Their dad were fans. Their grandfather were fans.
And their entire world revolved around how well their football team did that year. They talked. That's all they did. They enjoyed their holidays, talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers or talking about the Green Bay Packers and all that. You don't have that yet. I think it can happen, but I think in today's world, the reason the Panthers are what people would call fair weather fans is because we don't show that emotion because as a whole, I think there are a lot of us who live and die by what the Panthers do. The majority of us here all of us here on the Z3 and in the chat room, I imagine, will be a part of that. But I think it's a different era and a different generation, and because that we're in a different generation, I don't know if we will ever have the same type of fan base that you have with Pittsburgh and Wisconsin and with Green Bay. But it does feel like we just kind of just go with the punches. Whatever happens.
Well, let's also bear in mind we're kind of having to overcome the notion of where the wine and cheese fans, that Carolina Panther fans typically are. And let's just remember the Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl out of or in the past. They hadn't been back to the Super Bowl in the past 50 years. Like, you don't just all of a sudden have a fan base like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers and the Steelers. I mean, it takes time to build that up. And that's part of the reason why I think that, David Tepper doing a lot of the things that he's done has really been important. I mean, even seemingly small stuff like putting the Panther logo in the middle of the field. Like, this field does not belong to the NFL. This is the home of the Carolina Panthers. It needs to represent the Carolina Panthers. And as we continue to go on, if we're able to build competitive football teams, then you're going to have a team that the fans in the region can consistently be proud of. And you have to build that, and it takes time to build. The Panthers just celebrated their 25th year in the NFL. I mean, I think we forget how young this football team really is.
We are. We need, and we're actually starting to hit a point where we can have a fan base that is, lifelong invested. Yeah, is that my kids are not going to know a world without the Carolina Panthers. So that's going to change. Yeah, I don't want to know. I don't want to know a world without them. Greg, I think your audio is back.
Can you hear me now? Good deal.
Yes.
Well, talking about what y'all are talking about, I think part of what you got to look at is like the Kansas City fan base right now. While they're crazy right now and you see them everywhere, it's because for the last couple of years they've been good. Before that you didn't see as many. They're kind of closet fans too. I think part of Carolina not having as big of a fandom or fans not being as I want to say flamboyant about being a Panther fan, but it's not the right word. As enthusiastic about being a Panther fan, because we've never had back-to-back winning seasons, man. Like we've had good seasons and we've gone to the Super Bowl a couple times, which is great. But if you're a person trying to invest into a team, like your heart into a team, and you can't even have back-to-back winning seasons, it's difficult for some people to pull for that. I think that has to do with part of our fan base being the way it is. I mean, I guarantee you, after that 2015 season, if we came back and went 12-4, and we'd been in the playoffs the last three years after that, I guarantee you the fan base would be a lot louder than it is now because winning.
Well, look at how much better. To be honest, I would say that it's grown significantly in the last decade, and particularly because of those 3 back-to-back years that you made the playoffs. And you need that type of not just consistent success, but kind of clumped up success. Right. To get people emotionally ready for times that aren't good. And what I worry is is I'm at my alma mater is a smaller football school, ECU, but they've had some pretty successful times in their football history. But I don't know if we have the deep football tradition as a fan base to weather but so many bad years, and we haven't had a winning season in 5 years, and people are, you get fatigued by it, and that is ultimately a sort of fear that I have, hidden about the Carolina Panthers, and the idea of how do we make it through 2 years of dumpster. if you're and you point to the San Francisco 49ers and look at how they have flipped around a team, but those guys have also like 5 Super Bowls in their history.
All right.
So I do think it's slightly a different story when it comes to that. Now, guys, I want to go ahead. Let's pop in and let's hit some cat calls real quick and move this along, and then we'll come back and talk Greg Olsen. And I want you guys thinking about where you want to take the show after this.
So what are your thoughts on catcalling?
Yeah, it's pretty. You shouldn't do that to somebody.
And how did that make you feel?
Very uncomfortable.
So how do you think catcalling makes the person feel?
It feels good, like.
Who's that cat sitting in the back corner with his face buried in his nose? Who's that kid that can use one?
Yo, what up, Panther fam, Panther Nation, Tony, Cody, Greg, Wes, Susan, everybody in the chat, all y'all.
What up?
You know who it is.
Man?
It's your boy, the Great Northern Panther, Josh from Mass.
Josh from Mass. It's about time, y'all.
It is Friday. It's Friday night. And as
It's
anybody
Tuesday.
who spent any time on Twitter this afternoon or this evening knows, the big cat is going to be a Panther next year. That's right. You heard it from the man himself. QB1 said it himself. You going to be a Panther next year? His own words. Abso-fucking-lutely. So y'all can put it to bed. Y'all can stop with him. It makes sense to trade him. It makes sense to cut him. It makes sense to milk him like a cow. It makes sense to do this, that. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. I've been tired of hearing it, and now we're vindicated. We're brandicated.
Yeah!
Mandacated.
Josh is with
mandated.
me.
Get
Right
off
behind
that
it,
bus and get on your damn feet, Panther Nation. Because even though it is a dark time, we lost Luke. We lost Greg. And we're going to lose some other faces. But, man, I said it. Said it. Mr. Pepper has a plan. And y'all said I was crazy on the Twitter. Y'all saying I was crazy.
On the Twitter.
But nah, that dirty white boy from up north. No.
Dirty Yankee.
No.
Yeah.
Cam ain't going nowhere. Cam ain't going nowhere. He's going to be our quarterback next year. And he said it himself. People go, well, he's got, he's been this, that, and what, and the third, and he's been hurt, and he's been this. The man himself said it. I got a lot to prove. Not just to the people in this building, but to my goddamn self. That mentality alone says it all. And did you ever really doubt it? I mean, come on. Did you ever really, truly, honestly doubt Cam fucking Newton? Did you doubt the competitor that this man is? Really? Did you doubt him? Then shame on you, and maybe you don't need to be a Panthers fan. Maybe you need to take like Ump told you, take 2 steps towards the door and just walk it out. Okay? Maybe you just ain't cut out for the keep pounding lifestyle. Because that's what we're doing.
Tell them.
All day, all night, off season, on season, training camp, Super Bowl weekend. We ain't in the Super Bowl. Don't matter. Call an Uber, get a ride home, because we gonna be there. All right? Keep pounding, Panthers fam. This is Josh.
Good call, man. Good call.
Yeah, way to go, Josh.
Get in that ass. Let it go.
It's to keep pounding life. Let your lady know.
Hey, with Cam Newton in this whole thing, like I'm with him on this. I believe that when Cam says that he's coming back, even though it's not a guarantee, just because he feels that way, it doesn't necessarily mean it's where they're going. Did y'all notice? Does Cam look different to y'all as far as like just his demeanor and his attitude, the way he speaks? Like he even toned it down a little bit with the way he dresses.
He feels more. He feels more intelligent.
Yeah, almost. Well, he almost feels like he's kind of humbled himself. He's like, okay, I need to go out there and I need to do this. And he even talked about it. Like I sent a video clip in the group chat.
That's just because he had that hat on and them glasses.
Well,
if he pulls that funky
but
hair out, you would still be like,
but he feels like he's toned it down a little bit. He feels he's grown up a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like he's speaking with more like, you know, he would always have like, if you and people always pointed out, like when he's probably the least, one of the quarterbacks that have more mistakes and, you know, words that he uses that he means something else and it means something completely different than what he's trying to say.
When I look at the man's in the mirror, that type of stuff.
Yeah. And so it's like it's really interesting because like I know what he tries to say sometimes, but I know that people are going to try to point out the fact that he looks like he's not able to put together, you know, a correct sentence from time to time. But I felt like this go around, like he was speaking a lot more smoothly. He wasn't I don't know, is that speech he gave for I don't know, I can't remember if it was on Under Armour or what, but
it was Oakley.
It was definitely one of the ones that it's probably one of the better spoken things he said, and that actually encouraged me a lot to see him. It seems like he's definitely trying to pull himself into a different era in his life to where he's considered the mature quarterback rather than somebody who is just there to have fun.
Right.
You know, I don't even know that he's changed a whole lot. I just feel like, you know, I remember at the end of the Tampa Bay game, the last game he played this past season, me and Tony, who are both big, huge defenders of Cam Newton and the way he dresses, after that performance and the way he looked in the post-game press conference, even we both were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is not the time and place, and you do look like a buffoon right now. And I think that it's not necessarily so much that Cam has changed, but I feel like maybe he's kind of felt that same sentiment. Not that he doesn't still want to dress up and be flamboyant and do the same Cam Newton bullshit that he likes to do, but just that he feels as though he has something to prove, and everyone's doubting him, and no one believes in him. And it would kind of be a bad look to go out there and not even just the way he dresses, but, you know, in his demeanor, I feel that he has the presence of a man that's comfortable and calm in who he is, the value that he knows he has and that he brings to the football team. And he knows what he still has yet to prove. Like he said, not only to the fans, to the owner, to the coach, but to his own self. And I think that's the most important part, is that a motivated Cam Newton is dangerous for every defense in the NFL.
Yeah. I think you're also getting to see a Cam Newton too that doesn't have the the pressure of the moment on him, which can help him relax a little bit. You know what I mean? Catching him in his emotions is that he could be more prone to, you know, maybe becoming frustrated. I actually think he's just improved tremendously as a public speaker, and and he should, because, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, because, you know, I still sound like a damn idiot half the time on this podcast, and I speak for a living half the, you know, you know, and so to think that these 20, you know, I give a lot of grace, I feel like, to the 22-year-old kid who's put on the spot by all these reporters trying to get this and that. But I almost would say that it's like there's a sort of a little more reservedness to him. And that is like, I'm ready for this story. You know, the story's not about me anymore right now. And look, he brought up Patrick Mahomes in this, and he's recognizing that whether or not it's right or justified because of the injuries and the crappiness of the Panthers' offensive line, he is not the star right now of the league, and he certainly could be. I think I'm happy. I'm very happy that Cam Newton isn't frustrated with the Panthers organization.
Yeah.
Right. And now that those comments too come on the heels, or maybe not on the heels at that moment, but it was that day or right around that day that Greg Olsen, it was announced. When was that? Wednesday of last week? When did that happen, guys?
Thursday.
Okay, so Thursday of last week. We'll get back to that. I want to come back to the Cam Newton, Greg Olsen relationship and things. Also, shout out to CK for chopping up a reaction video for us for the C3 channel. You can go and check that out on our YouTube channel. And I'm going to still try to drop it as a podcast. I'm just trying to figure out where to place it. But our reaction, our kind of goodbye video, it's really well done by CK of us not only talking about Greg Olsen, but reminiscing on some of the plays that we most remember about him and what he's meant to this organization. So you can find that video on our YouTube channel. Just Google the C3 Panthers podcast, or if you're watching right now on YouTube, smash the thumbs up button, subscribe. Don't leave us just yet, but go check out that video after the show. The number is 252-228-5098. We'd like you to be a part of the broadcast. We want to hear your thoughts on Greg Olsen, Cam Newton. Oh, and by the way, I got a message, CK and Cody. You were mentioned on this. I forget who it was. They said stop. Somebody tell Tony to quit calling him Olsen.
Yeah, I saw this too. Yeah, our fans don't have a problem calling you out when they feel like you need checked on something.
No, is that my youngest baby says almost, like when she's trying to say almost. So that's the Olsen is the country. Olsen. All right, let's get on to the next cat call.
What's up, guys? Kyle from VA. As everyone knows, the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. And man, I'm gonna say that was a hell of a game, man. It was a hell of a game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for old Kyle Shanahan, he's gonna be known as the two-time Super Bowl choke artist. You can't obviously blame it all on the coach. It's just crazy, man. I think both quarterbacks really didn't play like shit, but didn't play good either. But Mahomes made the throw when he needed to. 49ers D-line is something nasty. But the Chiefs defense also stepped up when they needed to and put down work. Really, I'm happy for Andy Reid. He got his. I think before getting the ring, he was still going to the Hall of Fame. This pretty much cements it now. Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame coach, no doubt. Patrick Mahomes, you might as well go ahead and throw him in the Hall of Fame too. Even though he played like shit tonight, but you might as well. Yeah, man, just a good game. I'm glad I had the 49ers winning, but I'm happy that the game turned out a good game and not a blowout. Anyway, guys, just calling to see what y'all thoughts were on the Super Bowl. Keep pounding. Next season.
Oh, gosh, thank you for asking that question.
We're gonna do it.
All right. Overall thought, good or great Super Bowl, guys? Good or great?
Great. I feel like, and it had more to do with the commercials for me. I feel like the commercials were finally back to the standard that we were used to.
You just liked it because Dwight was in the commercial.
Yeah, dude, Dwight. Yeah, Dwight. You had Toby. You had everybody, dude. But no, one of the things that I was right as the end of the game was coming up, obviously, it's eerily reminiscent of the 28-3 comeback that the Patriots had over top of Kyle Shanahan's offense with the Atlanta Falcons. Granted, this was a little different. It was only 10 points and no lead, especially as low as 10 points is safe, even with 6 minutes left against the Chiefs. But the part of it that bugged me slightly about the whole thing was I do not, and I don't know who would be his replacement, but Patrick Mahomes was not the MVP of that game.
Oh, gosh. Dude, are you going to go with that running back? I'm so tired of this.
If you could give an entire defense an MVP, I think they could. But, I mean, here's the problem. Like, if you look at every single pass Mahomes had, every one of them, they were underwhelming. They were either in the dirt or, like, even that 44-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had to stand still for like 5 seconds to catch that thing.
But he was also getting smashed by Bosa at the same time.
Yeah, and you know what was my real issue with this game is that you're going to call that offensive pass interference on Kittle, but the amount of hold calls that they missed in that game are astronomical, which I'm okay with. Let these guys play. But if you're going to let that happen, you've got to let that pass interference call go. Like, I don't care what you say. That should not have been a pass interference. I am a firm believer of that. The 49ers did everything they could to lose this by themselves. Jimmy Garoppolo missed a wide open Emmanuel Sanders running down that would have just changed the entire narrative. But when they gave, I just felt like there were so many other people that could have possibly. I don't think that Damian Williams did anything astronomical, but let's be honest, he didn't make nearly the amount of mistakes Mahomes did. And Mahomes was just a bad game, like really bad game for him. If you look at it,
yeah. Listen, it certainly wasn't Patrick Mahomes' best game, but I think at the end of the day, on 3rd and 15 in the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes made the throw that he needed to make.
He also got that 3rd down that he ran and dove. Those are big.
The 3rd down that he ran and dove. Like, really, it's a microcosm because, you might not remember it as it being his best game, and it certainly wasn't. But at the end of the day, when the game was on the line, did you make the right play? And I do, I think Patrick Mahomes did that. So I'm not mad at him being the Super Bowl MVP. I will say this, and I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here because I said it on our show. I remember specifically saying I wondered how much the Chiefs were going to run the football because that's what the 49ers did to us. They didn't let our defensive line pin our ears back and rush the passer. And I felt that Kansas City would employ something similar. And as you saw, Damian Williams got a ton of carries. And, yeah, he could have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. That being said, I mean, either way, it doesn't really matter to me. I think you weren't able to win the football game without both of them. I thought it was fun. The whole Super Bowl was awesome, man. Dude, how many teenage boys went through puberty watching the halftime show? Like, good Lord, dude. Like, I had to change my clothes,
Can
man.
we agree
like,
that should be the halftime show every year?
Dude, I would watch Shakira anytime you let me watch her, dude. I was reminded how she's one of the most talented performers in the world that never gets enough credit. Homegirl played the guitar, drums, sang, and belly danced on stage and shook her ass at 1,000,000 miles a minute. Come on, dude.
Showed you how to eat clams.
Yeah, the tongue thing.
Yeah, you have to shuck them. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, man, I thought that everything from the commercials to the halftime show to the game itself. I mean, there was a time when I thought the 49ers had the momentum and they were going to start to run away with it. And I wouldn't have been surprised if they did, but I think this was a breath of fresh air compared to Super Bowls in the past few years.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought it was pretty good. Definitely not the best Super Bowl I've ever seen, but it was a lot better than last year's.
It was a great game, though.
It was a good game.
There was drama. There was a lead change. There was the star power at the end. There was a sort of, but this just show you is that I think one of the things I've been irritated by the conversation in the aftermath is how everybody has just dumped on Jimmy G because he missed that pass. And like
a hard pass to make.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Jimmy G looked bad in that game.
No, he looked better than Mahomes for most of the game.
Yeah, he was definitely on pace to be able to say he was a Super. I mean, I don't think there was anybody else in that game outside of the quarterbacks you could have given that to. I just hate that Mahomes got that moniker now. But yeah, if you look at that beautiful pass he gave to Kittle right before the half that was called back because of the pass interference. I mean, it was just he was dropping some dimes. It just happened to be one of the biggest plays and the biggest stage of the
moment. You needed to come back, yeah. But I think if anything, the problem with that, what happened was not with the San Francisco offense, but I mean their defense got gassed at the end and just couldn't make the stop. They didn't make the big play.
It wasn't their defense, man. It was their offense, dude. Why on 3rd and 10, when a first down basically wins the game, do you go for that long bomb that he missed Emmanuel Sanders on? Why? Like, what was it? I think they said that he in the last 2 possessions they had 8 plays, and I think they threw the ball 5 of those 8 plays. Why?
Well, because they had to score a touchdown and get
they
back
didn't. They were up. They were still up.
In my mind, and it goes back to Kyle Shanahan, and especially after the Super Bowl, and which he was with the Falcons, and I mean, come on, I don't have to tell you guys about 28-3. I mean, listen, why would they run? They moved away from running the football when that was literally effective for them the entire game, and then now all of a sudden you want to get cute and put the game in the hands of Jimmy G. Like, why? I just don't understand that. Like, you could have won the Super Bowl with just having Jimmy G. Jimmy G did not lose the football game for the San Francisco 49ers. But, I mean, he obviously didn't help, but he could have been put in a better position as well. And that throw that he missed, dude, people just don't understand how hard it is to play quarterback. That's a hard fucking throw to make, man. That is not easy to do. So, yeah, I mean, I would have preferred to have had another quarterback if I had to make that play. But he damn sure wasn't the reason why they lost. I think
Can we agree that Emmanuel Sanders 5 years ago would have been fast enough to catch that ball?
Oh, God. Yeah. Emmanuel Sanders before this injury last year, like 2.5 years ago. Moneybags Lawson says they calling him Jittery G now. All right, I do want to say this. We're going to go back to a...
Hold on, before we go on, we missed a super chat. Michael Jones, $3.99. Thank you for the love, brother. We see you.
Thanks, Michael.
He said, what's the real reason Cam is not the Walter Payton Man of the Year? And good Lord, man, I just don't think they want to give these awards to the Panthers. McCaffrey deserved the Offensive Player of the Year over Michael Thomas. I don't care what no one says. And
hands down.
Hands down. And Cam Newton, after annihilating what is essentially the popular vote on Twitter, when Cam Newton laps every other person, I mean, I don't know. It's unfortunate because it's about charity, and ultimately, all these guys are doing wonderful things. But it's the same thing with Greg Olsen, man. Greg Olsen deserved it 2 years in a row, and they stiffed him too. So at the same time, it's like I'm numb to this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. I could act like I'm mad and I'm upset. Yeah, and I am. But dude, I'm over this shit, man. We're gonna start winning awards when we start taking shit and winning football games.
God of Blackness wants you to say the real reason, Cody.
Say the real reason?
But unfortunately, Calais Campbell got it.
He said you played it safe.
I mean,
I think it had a lot to do with the fact that Cam didn't play, but 2 games this year. I think that had the majority of it. I think that Cam's out of sight, out of mind right now. And so when it comes to all the things Cam does, certainly. But yeah, I think Calais Campbell was a bigger name this year than Cam Newton was, so it was an easier decision.
Who did he even play for this year, Calais Campbell?
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville?
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, so back to the Super Bowl. Everybody loved the halftime show. There's been some very, very small minority that is upset because J-Lo hit the stripper pole at the end. And that last little butt shake,
who's
I guess.
upset other than a bunch of pussies?
There's always going to be somebody upset about it.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. I do think it was good. The halftime show. I think the game was fantastic. Yeah. I was entertained from beginning to end, and I do think that this was on the San Francisco defense, man. That the defense was supposed to win this game. And they just couldn't stop at the end the unstoppable. And that's Patrick Mahomes, man. And that's why he's MVP, in my opinion, is that without Patrick Mahomes, they would not have won. If you swap quarterbacks, you know that Kansas City wouldn't be able to win.
I disagree with that to some degree. Without Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, then maybe, or Sammy Watkins even showed out this game. There, like, how many wide open receivers there were with one of the best secondaries in the league
that's why, because they weren't that great that day.
Yeah,
San Francisco's defense was almost great.
They did. Good.
So I'm just saying, Jimmy G would have thrived in that environment very much so. There was too many errant throws by Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, I'm critical of Jimmy G just as much as I am Patrick Mahomes. I think they're good quarterbacks. I think Patrick Mahomes is clearly the better, but I think Patrick Mahomes, if you go back and look at this is probably the worst game he's played in his career.
In a while. Yeah. And you know what I thought about you, CK, is that he was whining after every fucking play.
Yeah. Yeah. Trust me. I was noticing every like, even when, he hit me in the face after he ran, he was not a safe player at that point in time. And he slid parallel. He wasn't sliding. It was insane to me. And they were behind. Once again, I have my quarrels with Patrick Mahomes. He's a good quarterback, and I think he is going to be one of the greatest. But it still bugs the crap out of me when he just wants to point out everybody else's flaws but doesn't acknowledge his own.
And Tony, can I ask if you remember this, man? Back before I was on the show full time, I remember calling into the Catcalls, making my case for why the Panthers should pick up Sammy Watkins in free agency.
Oh yeah, you love Sammy Watkins.
And dude, Sammy Watkins made plays. You can make. Outside of touchdowns and points, obviously, Sammy Watkins made a bunch of plays. Just how we're talking to Patrick Mahomes, maybe played his worst game of his career in the Super Bowl. Sammy Watkins probably played the best game of his career. Dude, he burned Richard Sherman.
That was
a few times, man, and just outran him. It was more nimble, but just a better, more crisper route runner. And,
you want Sammy Watkins? You'll probably be able to get him next year.
Hey, man, if he's willing to come play. That's another veteran that can still separate and do all the things that we want him to do. He's a bunch of years removed from being the high draft pick that he was, but talent is talent. I'd take him over whatever Torrey Smith did for us any day.
He's a Clemson guy, right?
He's also a 20. They're going to pay him $20 million next year. They're going to cut him.
I was wondering why you were praising him so much. I forgot he was a Clemson guy. Look, I'm not convinced of Sammy Watkins either, man. Too injury prone, and he hasn't really done anything. He had a great game in the Super Bowl, but he had 2 touchdowns the first game of the season, and then nothing else the rest of the
season. He's like quiet productivity all the time.
It's like another player that on any other football team, he probably is the number 1 wide receiver. But when you have the fastest player in Tyreek Hill, a matchup nightmare in Travis Kelce, now you have Mecole Hardman and Robinson. Dude, that team is loaded, and that's what I said. I believe last show, the Kansas City Chiefs are the perfect storm. It is an incredible talent at the quarterback position, an incredible coach and offensive mind that knows how to put his teams in advantageous matchups, and an incredible set of exterior weapons to work with. Man, that offense, if they're able to stay together, dude, that's a problem for a long time. He's only
had 1,000-yard season. He had 982 his first season. He had 1,000 his second season. Then it's been 430, 590, 519, 670. Never had.
I played Curtis Samuel over him any day.
Well, the Sammy Watkins, while he was at Buffalo, suffered from a lot of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
He was injury prone beyond, and I think the reason that he's been able to maintain his health is that he is not the only target.
He also had 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns in only 13 games. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that is pretty good.
Well, it's pretty good. Well, and that once again speaks to the fact he was literally the only person being thrown the ball on that Bills offense.
Yeah.
I'll say this about him: he's on a team-friendly deal, right? And so I
which means they can cut him, right?
I want to ask.
He's supposed to get like $20 million. I'm gonna look it up. I'll look it up.
Deal. $20 million.
Can I ask a question? How big is the Chiefs' window right now? Is it going to be New England-esque where it's a 20-year window? Or do you guys feel like this is literally like a 3-year window, sort of like the Seahawks when they were really good and they were going to the Super Bowl back-to-back years? Seahawks have been contenders, but they haven't been Super Bowl caliber for a minute. This year was probably the closest they've come in a while. What is that window that you feel like the Chiefs have? And is it shorter or longer? I mean, honestly.
Honestly, dude, it's pretty damn long. I'm on Spot Rack right now, and I'm looking at their free agents, all the people that they have to sign at the end of this year. Terrell Suggs was 37, whatever.
Yeah, he's gonna probably
Chad Henne, LaShawn McCoy, Darren Lee, Xavier Williams, Jordan Lucas, Morris Claiborne. Here's one that they're definitely going to have to decide. Chris Jones.
Yeah.
And I don't know what their cap space is looking like. I can look, but I mean, they'll probably pay him a pretty penny. He won't be top dollar because he is an incredible pass rusher, but he is terrible in run defense and he's bad at gap assignments and minding the right spot. So, man,
they have $10 million less than us in cap. They have $10 million less than us in cap space right now. They only have
long.
Yep, they have $16 million. This though. That is not. I hate to say this is Sammy Watkins' deal not team friendly.
Yeah,
it was up until this year, I think.
Okay.
2019 he was a cap hit of $19.2 million this year. Yeah,
maybe it was the year before. I don't know.
Yeah, it was that first year. It was 2018. But here is right now to keep Sammy Watkins under his current contract. They will have to pay him $21 million. If they cut him, they save 14, but still have $7 million in dead money. I want to say that Sammy Watkins has to be one of the best paid players ever. For very limited productivity. He's gotten traded for, they gave a king's ransom for him in the beginning. Then the LA Rams traded for him, right? Yeah. Didn't they have him? He has gotten money and clout everywhere he's gone. So we'll be thinking about that. Kansas City's window, I think, is as open as long as Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. And you have Kelsey there. They asked Kelsey what Patrick Mahomes couldn't do. He said the only thing he can't do is not talk like a frog. That was his answer. All right. Let's go back to the Catcalls. I know there's a lot of people that want to get involved right here. The number's 252-228-5098. We'll keep kind of sprinkling in that Super Bowl talk as we go.
What's up, boys? Kyle from VA.
Oh, that's the same call.
Hey, what's up, C3 Podcast? It's Lovato from OKC.
What's up,
Lovato? For Cody about the draft.
What's up, man?
I've been keeping up with a lot of mock drafts from probably about 3 months ago. I've been keeping up with it. And in the beginning, Andrew Thomas, the tackle from Georgia, his stock was really high. He was always top 4 in the mock drafts. Oh. He was always the number 1 tackle. And I've been looking at him recently, and his stock's been dropping, or other tackles have been rising because he's not the first tackle I see off the board anymore on these mock drafts. I was kind of curious to why that is, Cody. And also, give me your opinion on Derek Brown versus Javon Kinlaw, because I've been looking at the tape of both, and Derek Brown looks like he's more pro-ready. But I feel like Javon Kinlaw's ceiling is so much higher. He looks so athletic.
Yeah.
But he also has he has the higher floor, but the higher ceiling, but the lower floor as well, I believe. I feel like Derek Brown, he looks like he's ready for the NFL, but I don't think his ceiling is as high as Javon Kinlaw's. Give me your opinion on that, Cody. All right, keep pounding.
Keep
Hey, thanks,
pounding, man.
Lovato.
This
What a
is
great
my
goal.
kind of question, man. I need more of these kinds of questions in my life, man. I delve into this shit. My inner draft nerd needs these types of questions. So let me start with Andrew Thomas. I feel a lot of the criticism that he's receiving is kind of overblown. People are saying that he has a tendency to get beaten on inside moves. And in my mind, it's not necessarily a question of skill, but it's Andrew Thomas is violent with his hands. I mean, that guy wants to take your lunch money. So a lot of times the problem with Andrew Thomas is that he's so quick and violent with his hands that the edge rusher kind of gets a read as to what he wants to do, and then they'll counter and either work their way inside or hit him with a swim move and kind of make their way around him. And that is a legitimate criticism, but this isn't something that I've seen enough to worry about. In my mind, it's more of a coaching thing and making sure that he's minding his P's and Q's all the time. Other than that, I mean, listen, he's the truest left tackle prospect in this year's draft. And spoiler alert, and you all get to have this because you're listening to me right now, but tomorrow there's a brand new mock draft on drafttech.com in which I have us taking Andrew Thomas. So I did an entire write-up on him tomorrow, drafttech.com. Check it out. I provide links and sources to some of the clips that I use. Andrew Thomas is a mauler, and if we drafted Andrew Thomas, he would be the best franchise left tackle that Cam Newton has ever had. Now,
why is his stock slipping?
Well, like I said, he has he's not beaten a lot, but when he is, there are some mental errors that shows up on his film. A lot of people I see are questioning his hip stability, but man, listen, one of the most dynamic edge rushers in the draft this year is a guy by the name of Clavon Chason of LSU. He's a first-round draft pick, and is similar to Brian Burns. A lot of pop off the edge, very fast and explosive. And he's about 6'4", 250 pounds. Andrew Thomas had no problem matching him step for step. Oh, damn near the entire game, man. I mean, he took Chazon's lunch money. I mean, Andrew Thomas is that kind of prospect. I mean, he would be the best prospect at left tackle that Cam Newton has ever had protecting him. And I do agree with your assessment on the other part of your question. Derek Brown is much more ready to play football right now. I think they're both better designed to play 3-tech in the NFL. But Derek Brown is a monster right now. He'll probably instantly be the strongest defensive lineman on our line. He needs to develop a secondary and a third pass rush maneuver to get off of blocks. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, man. I believe that Javon Kinlaw probably does have a higher ceiling. Longer, more powerful. His dominant at the point of attack, comes from nothing. Family grew up very, very poor. So he has a work ethic about him. If the Panthers were to trade back some, Kinlaw would be the pick that I would be absolutely in love with. I don't know that I would take him in the top 10, but either Kinlaw or Derek Brown, they upgrade our defensive line tremendously.
Where do you see Kinlaw going?
Probably somewhere between 10 and 17. And that around the range that Carolina was drafting last year. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are comparing him to Chris Jones for Kansas City, and that's a very apt comparison. Powerful, long arms, just a badass pass rusher. So
this is what Todd. Did you read what Todd McShay said about him?
I try not to read Todd McShay or Kuiper as much as possible, but
he said this: if God was going to make a defensive lineman, it's this guy. It took 48 hours for him to just show every NFL GM, every NFL head coach, I'm the guy. Someone was smart enough, probably his agent, to say, you did a good enough job, bud. You can leave the Senior Bowl. He was done in 48 hours, and he probably made $12 to $15 million.
Yeah.
Does he not look one of the things, and I haven't watched him a lot, but in those videos, he looked very wide. Like, is he heavy? I mean, kind of heavy? Or is he just like built? Like, yeah, I was trying to figure it out. He just looked so big compared to the offensive linemen he was going against. He almost made them look skinny.
No, I mean, dude, he's built like a shit brick house, man. The dude, there's a picture of him flexing on, I don't know if it's Instagram or where it was, but dude, he is just a mound of muscle. And, there really is something to the mentality thing. I brought up that he was.
Oh, God, look at him. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, dude, Kinlaw is a monster. And, I mean, he might listen. I'm not surprised if he does work his way into the top 10. I mean, he's that kind of prospect, and people are going to fall in love with him. The guy has worked hard for everything that he's ever had. Yeah,
you know who's going to draft him? The Giants.
6'6", 300
fourth.
pounds.
They're going to draft him fourth.
I mean, Gettleman loves those hog mollies, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. But
while we're speaking,
last thing is that they both need polish. Derek Brown and Javon Kinlaw, you're going to need to put some work into them, as you're going to have to do with no matter who you draft. But I do agree with our caller that Kinlaw is probably a higher ceiling than Derek Brown.
Can Derek Brown be Aaron Donald? I don't think so.
How about Fletcher Cox? How about Fletcher Cox? That's who I compare him to.
Okay.
And a lot of times you have to understand that sometimes they'll put Kinlaw and Derek Brown at nose tackle. I mean, so they'll have him lined up directly across from the center because they know they're so big and powerful that they'll eat up 2 blocks. And, what if we said that, we didn't realize how much we missed the presence of a Star Lotulelei after he had left. So having that centerpiece in the middle of your defense is so incredibly important. And Derek Brown, in my opinion, right now would be probably the best, strongest defensive lineman on our defensive line as soon as he was drafted. Whereas I don't think that's true for Kinlaw right now, but it probably would be true in no time.
God of Blackness is echoing your sentiment. He said Kinlaw is not more powerful than Derek Brown, and he also said that Kinlaw is projected to Dallas. That brings me to the question: didn't they have a big defensive lineman that you loved, Cody, last year? That was about to hit free agency, and did they lock him up?
For who? For what team now?
Lawrence. Who is it? Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
No, who's
D. Lawrence?
Marcus Lawrence. Dexter.
Marcus Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence.
Hold on. Yeah. Dexter Lawrence was drafted from Clemson to the Giants. And he's a big defensive tackle. Or you're talking about DeMarcus Lawrence? Yeah, for the Cowboys.
Yeah, for the Cowboys. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
the guy from the Cowboys.
They locked him up last year.
Yeah, he's an edge rusher, but very different. I mean, he's like 245, 250 pounds. Very different.
And I'm glad Tree Fitty brought this up. I wanted to ask about this, but I almost wonder if it's too early because it isn't even the combine yet. And we may find out that there's somebody who blows us away and we don't want to do this. But he brings up the idea of trading back.
I just saw a mock draft that had us trading back to 11.
I saw that as well. And then they had us picking a quarterback in round 2 for some reason. But first, let me ask this. Do you trade back at all? Do you trade out of the top 10 in this draft with as many holes as we have? Do we trade back?
It has to be on the table. for sure. I mean, especially like let's say we're sitting at number 7, and we know that Cam Newton is going to come back for another year, and we know this, right? And then you have, let's say, the Colts. And the Colts are sitting there at 13, and they don't have a quarterback. And they want to jump up to grab, say, Justin Herbert. Well, yeah, all of a sudden, that's a pretty interesting trade. You know, to move back from 7 to 13, that's not too far. You're still getting a good player. I think a lot of it just depends on how the board falls. Right now,
the player we're getting.
Well, right now, in my mind, there are at least 3 players that I would really have a hard time passing up on. It's Isaiah Simmons, it's Andrew Thomas, and it's Jeffrey Okudah. Because these are the kinds of players that don't just come around. I mean, if you have the opportunity to draft these dudes, man, don't miss on them. Don't miss on them. I mean, Isaiah Simmons would.
Wouldn't it be nice to be one of those teams like the Patriots that had 2 first-round picks one year, or you know what I'm saying? Awesome. Like if we had 2 picks in the top 25, I think that would be worth trading back.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to get a guy that you believe is like a generational like talent, and I don't know if you're going to get if that's truly there at 7. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. God of Blackness has 2 comments we got to get to. He's dropped 2 love bombs in the super chats. The first one we'll go to is, since we're talking about the is it Derek Brown? Derek Brown, he asked, can Derek Brown be Vince Wilfork?
That's not really.
And no, he doesn't look as fat as Vince Wilfork.
It's not really a good comparison. And I'm going to be real with you. The days of Vince Wilfork type players and Tony Saragusa and shit like that, those days are done, man. They're asking these defensive tackles to move their ass. So they're a lot more athletic. I mean, the primary focus of a Tony Saragusa and a Vince Wilfork was to just be a big badass right there in the middle and get some push. I mean, generate some push, try and collapse the center of that pocket, and they did well doing that. I do think, even though they do play Derek Brown at 1 technique and 0 technique, he's gonna make the most of his money as a 3-tech, as a 3-tech defensive tackle. And I compare him to Fletcher Cox. I mean, if he's able to develop some more secondary pass rush maneuvers, yeah, Derek Brown is going to be a badass for a long time to come. I mean, his film against LSU, who was an award-winning offensive line this year, I mean, he dominated them up front. And they have guys that are going to be drafted as well. So I wouldn't compare him to Vince Wilfork, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a bad thing. I wouldn't necessarily say that we're looking for a Vince Wilfork type of player.
Now, the other question was, have we talked about Vic Beasley? Or let's talk about Vic Beasley. The Falcons are not going to be bringing him back with, or they just said that they're done with him. Like, they're just not interested in re-signing him. Now, when he says, do you think that question is just talk about Vic Beasley in general and the Atlanta Falcons, or I'm almost feeling like we don't need any more thin dudes right now. We need some bigger bodies on this defense.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
I don't know, man. Vic Beasley, for me, that's not a guy I'm going after in free agency. He hasn't impressed in the last. He had 8 sacks this 2019, not too bad. But he only had 28 solo tackles the whole year. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's not super impressive numbers for me. I guess if the price is right, you go after Beasley, but he's demanding, top money. There's no way.
I don't think he will, and that's why the Falcons are moving on from him. Good night to Sarah Taylor, by the way. Thanks for stopping by, Sarah. But I don't necessarily think that that Vic Beasley. It's not that I think. I know no one's going to offer him top pass rusher money, or else the Falcons would have done it. And really, the conversation around Vic Beasley coming out of Clemson kind of ended up being true. He was really just a speed rusher, And if he couldn't beat you with speed, he was going to have problems anchoring and setting a physical edge and being strong enough to play an edge role in a 4-3 defense. With that said, listen, he's going to make some money as a situational pass rusher. And that's fine, man. He's the type of guy that if he wants to continue to play NFL football, he'll take a contract for a year or two, making some good money. And on third downs and certain packages, you can put Beasley in to come in and get after the quarterback. He was a one-year wonder. In 2016, he had 15 sacks on the season, looked like an absolute monster, and then just kind of fell off the face of the earth. So, I really don't think he'll command a lot of money, and he'll be a nice addition to some team, but he's not a centerpiece defensive lineman.
Breaking Panthers news. Wes Horton retires.
Oh, no! What?
No more Wes Horton ever on this team. Actually, I didn't dislike Wes Horton. I didn't dislike him. He always was just a rotational guy that
but it wasn't his fault. It's because he kept on getting snaps over better players that deserved to be out there more than him.
I don't know what it is, but this didn't hit me as emotionally as the Luke movement. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm still gonna wear his jersey sometimes, though. Horton. Yeah. I'll still wear the Wes Horton jersey.
Yeah, Horton. Here's a who.
Yeah.
If you have do you have a Wes Horton jersey, or are you just pulling my
No,
gosh, that would have been awesome.
Did they even sell Wes Horton jerseys? Come on.
He did. He cited accumulating minor injuries and his calling to help usher in a new generation of people. Like, he wants to go out there and be humanitarian, I guess.
Carl did something about video feed. Are we still up?
We're still up in the YouTube chat I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I sure hope so. All right, let's go on to the next call.
Quit scaring us, Carl.
Hey, guys. I'm sure you'll probably play some of my calls from last week, like y'all did last week. Y'all played some calls from the week before last. And it's Joey Esquivel, by the way. But if you don't, I want to say some thoughts about Cam Newton. I usually don't, because about 50 million people say him before me, because I'm last to everything. Hence why,
don't be so hard on yourself.
I don't know if you knew that, but I'm always last, so that means I'm the best. So, my first point is, all this talk about teams that should trade for Cam Newton. You know who really should trade for Cam Newton? You know who really should pay Cam Newton? The Carolina Panthers, that's who.
You damn right.
That's really what I think, because, why don't we see what these other teams see in him? And the second point is, I go walking in uptown Charlotte quite frequently. It's just such a weird feeling when I pass by that building where him and Michael Jordan live. And I know he lives there only during the football season. I know that. I know he lives in Atlanta. But it is still kind of sad when I walk past that building. I know exactly where it is because I'm really familiar with the street grid downtown. So I know as soon as I cross 4th Street on Tryon coming up, I know that building's right there, and it's kind of sad. It doesn't feel light passing by that building, if you know what I mean.
Here's part 2 of the call.
So it's Joey Esquivel about the point about how Panthers fans haven't been enthusiastic. Except me. I used to bug the shit out of it. Blah. I can't fucking talk. It's that time of night again. And plus, the Panthers have been driving me a little insane with this constant waiting around for certainty about Cam Newton. So, not really at my best, let's just say. But, no, you were talking about enthusiasm of Panther fans. used to bug the shit out of everyone in the school about how happy I am to be a Panthers fan. And you know what? Nothing makes me more optimistic than an owner with balls the size of New York City, like David Tepper, a new coach that is straight out of the 21st century, unlike anyone Jerry Richardson would ever hire. I don't know, a running back that can make everyone suck his dick, and Christian McCaffrey, and a quarterback that when he's healthy can
I
make
think the
everybody
NFL
suck
might have a
his dick
problem
too.
with that if that were going on.
Like, yeah. Nothing makes me more optimistic than 6 and motherfucking 10 this year, dude. Seriously. And if anybody got a problem with me being a Panthers fan, which I know no one on here does, but I'm just putting this out in public. Anybody got a problem with me being a Panthers fan, catch me outside. How about that? And you'll lose just like whatever team you like.
Oh, catch me outside. All
He
right,
said,
Joey
"Run up."
Esquivel. Joey Esquivel, thank you for your calls. We are trying to be a little bit more cautious with the calls, not like content-wise, but playing too many older calls. So since I missed some of those, we'll go sift through them. If we don't get to your calls every night, please don't be upset, guys. We try to do our best, but we also, at times, this show goes a little crazy long. So we're trying to stay focused. And so we've gotten through the cat calls. The line is 252-228-5098. You can call in for next week's show. Or you can keep calling. If we get a lot of calls midweek, we might pop one of those little videos off that CK is starting to make, and we'll see what we can do there. Guys, other than Wes Horton retiring, I guess there was one other story that, look, is the nostalgia, or I don't know, that's not the right word. There has been this kind of, with the Greg Olsen news, you saw it in our reaction video, this term mutual parting of ways. You know, I went on Pirate Radio. I'm there on Fridays, 3 o'clock live on Pirate Radio on the Sports Bar with Clip Brock. And, you know, we were talking about this, and it was the day after it happened, and he said, does anybody really ever mutually part ways? And you read the story from the Carolina Panthers. You did not get the heartfelt video like a Luke Kuechly, and there was not the story where the surprise was that Greg Olsen was not retiring, but instead that they were mutually parting ways. Well, today he went on Wilson and Parcell with WFNZ, and he said that the mutually parting of ways was a little overblown, that he did not give the Panthers any ultimatums, that this was about his contract and his age and the direction they were trying to go, not that Greg Olsen did not want to play or wasn't all in on this team. Guys, do you feel any different a week later about the Greg Olsen news, or after you hear this, not as mutual as people think?
Yeah, I do. I'll jump right in there. Klein from the Roaring Riot had an interesting take. You know, we've now learned that Greg Olsen is going to be visiting the Bills and the Redskins, which clearly have ties to Carolina.
Yeah.
Which
and
indicates
Seattle.
Yeah. Which let's say one of those two that he's familiar with, Ron Rivera or a Buffalo Bills, signing. That points to exactly what you're saying, is that it had more to do with age and the price of the contract more than it did anything else, because that isn't a mutually, he didn't leave to go to a contender if he goes to the Bills. I mean, I know the Bills were in the playoffs, but let's be honest, they have some pieces they need to create. They need to, they have a pretty big hole, and they can be playoff contenders, but not Super Bowl contenders just yet. So if he signs with them, or clearly the Washington Redskins, there is definitely a writing on the wall that says Greg Olsen was not a part of the decision making about him not being here. They basically made it seem for PR purposes, because they know that if Luke retired and we say we release Greg Olsen, on top of the possibility of Cam not being here, there's going to be a riot. So if it's a mutual agreed upon release, then at that point you're like, okay, yeah, it's cool. Greg didn't want to be here. Well, Greg sounds like he did want to be here, and
you know what Greg wanted was that $14 million.
Yeah,
that he was going to get paid, and that's the thing is that
is he getting paid that anywhere else?
Yeah, no, he's not going to. But the Panthers are totally twisted and contorted. I mean, I won't say in a dishonest way, but you could have said. I mean, you could have seen headlines all around the league. Panthers cut Greg Olsen.
Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound like that. But Greg Olsen, look, I think Greg Olsen would have been. It comes down. We found out is that making $14 million or 11, because I think it's 11, 3 guaranteed, 8. It might be 11. That's a lot more money than he's probably going to be able to command anywhere else at this point. Mm-hmm. And he would be in the community he's familiar with. He would be, he's beloved and all of this. So Greg Olsen, though, I think the most surprising part is that he's going to take the money on the field rather than the money in the booth. Because if he's, I think, right now, I would not be overly worried about him signing with the Redskins. Maybe a little bit more with the Bills, but I think Seattle is going to be an interesting look for him, as well as New England could be an interesting look. You never know who is trying to add another tight end that is close. And I wanted to say one other thing about Greg Olsen, but all right. So anybody else had changed feelings about the Greg Olsen departure? Oh, I know what it was, and I'll let you guys go. But I have an idea of how, because we really need to start talking about how to replace Greg Olsen.
Yeah. My feelings haven't changed. I mean, so basically, my assumption kind of was this, that Greg Olsen knew that if he wanted to play football, it wasn't going to be here. Just because even though he did want to continue to play for the Panthers, and the Panthers wanted Greg to continue to play for the Panthers wanted Greg to continue to play for them, but they weren't going to do it under their current contract agreement. And he was just owed too much money for them to swallow, bringing him back for another year under that same amount of money. So why continue to pay him if it's just 1 year? You're moving on to a different, to a new era in Panthers football, and obviously Greg wants to.
He's not that player anymore either. Yeah, he's not a $12 million.
He was fully healthy this year, and yes, we did not have a Cam Newton to throw the ball to him. But if he's a security blanket, his numbers should have been pretty high because he's not a deep threat. He's very good about finding the holes in the zone coverage and making sure that he gives the quarterback an easy throw. And that means that he should have had monstrous numbers. Instead, it was always a check down to Christian McCaffrey. So, I mean, I think his role was less about production and more about leadership, right? And that's intangible, especially when you have as young of a team as we have on our offense. You know, he was able to tell people their assignments because he knew this offense back and forth. You know, he's such a smart guy. He's able to make sure that he's not missing his blocks. We talked about it on Thursday in that game, and this is what bugs me the most is now I have this interesting feeling of, you know, on Thursday or on a reaction video we had about this, we were kind of complimentary of how the Panthers handled this. Like, oh, they're giving him an opportunity to go out and do that. All things, you know, it's something they had a conversation. Greg doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild, all this stuff. And now we come to the conclusion that, nope, it was just about the money the entire time.
Well, that's why we got to stop being fooled by it. And I think that, I think that we have to just recognize that no matter what is underneath things, that if that's with Greg Olsen. Now here, let's not feel too bad for Greg Olsen in this scenario.
No.
He has earned $62 million over his career. $62 million. The Panthers, he did strong arm and in a smart way. This is why you got to root for players to get the money when they can. A lot of times, 2015, it renegotiated his contract, right? And there was an extension that was $22 million, $12 million guaranteed. He earned $21 million of that contract. Now, the last part is terminated. He was supposed to get a significant amount of money with that last year, but the Panthers could get out of it, and that's just the way it is. And I think that yes, it is about the money, CK, but at the same time, it's also about the money and the value of the player at that point. And Greg Olsen is on the back. He needs to be on the team where he's not the guy.
Yeah.
He's just a guy.
What's interesting, if I'm not mistaken, what was it? He signed the extension, and then just a few years later, he actually asked for a restructure, and they gave him more incentive-based increase. And so if he hit certain metrics, he would make more. So I mean, he even went even farther than 2015, and he did that same thing. And I think that's why, once again, now we're in this position where the production hasn't been there, and that was his main reason. He said that my main asset is I've always been available for the team, and I was the first tight end to hit 1,000 yards back to back to back. And he actually said, and honestly, it was a little bit surprising in that moment, I think, for a lot of us, that he said, I think I need to, be compensated like my production shows. Well, now, past 3 years, that production hasn't been there. And so I get the decision making behind it. It's just, once again, it's just the smoke and mirrors game that I feel like we're in. And that's what bugged me the most about it, is that I felt like we did a good thing. And now, after hearing how that interview went, where it was very one-sided almost, I hate how political our team has gotten. It seemed to be, pretty upfront for the most part for a lot of purposes, but it just feels way too, backstabby almost sometimes. And I'm hoping that it's just something that's a temporary feeling, and we'll see Cam Newton back. But if it happens to Cam Newton after he had his conversation with Tepper and Rule and Marty Herney and everything, and then they still decide to release him after he came away from that feeling encouraged and super motivated, that's gonna rub me even further the wrong way, and I'm gonna be really kind of frustrated with this organization and the way they've handled these players who've been so important to our organization over the past decade, really.
Brad Dugan says in the chat, he says that Ian Thomas. And I don't think that Ian Thomas, now I think while we are excited about what we saw in his rookie year, you saw either the sophomore slump or continued just issues with coaching. Who knows entirely with that. But I don't know if you have a ton that says that can be your only option, right? I don't know if I feel like you're going to have to do something like the Panthers did in 2011. And maybe they're kind of planning on something like that, is how do we find the next Greg Olsen, a guy that's really good that hasn't been appreciated. I know this player is nothing like Greg Olsen because he has been the opposite of what Greg Olsen was for the beginning of his career. But what about like a Hunter Henry?
Crickets, I guess.
Bringing him in. Yeah, I know. Well, I think it's just you and I at this point. Cody's got his mic muted, and I don't even know if Greg's still here at the moment.
I didn't even know I had my mic muted. But no, listen, I think that, so one, we have to remember there's so much that we don't know about a lot of these players because our coaches didn't play them. And it's not a coincidence that after Ron Rivera leaves, well, now you see more snaps of Ian Thomas. I get the hesitation of people saying, well, we haven't seen him do a lot, so there's no reason for us to blindly throw our faith behind him being our number one tight end because we just haven't seen him do it. That's not his fault, but at the end of the day, I think he still needs a real opportunity to show what kind of tight end he is. But how about this, man? The NFL is not just about having one tight end. I mean, you see the Ravens and the 49ers, they'll run out there with 3 tight end sets, and just dare you to defend the RPO. I mean, get 2 tight ends that can run block and pass catch. I mean, they may be hard to find, but they are out there. Draft another one.
Well, that's what we did. We did it in one of the things that we had success early in Cam's career was we brought in a young Greg Olsen and we had an older Jeremy Shockey at that point, and we ran that 2 tight end offense. What I'm saying is, and I agree with you, is that Ian Thomas alone isn't enough. You need to be tooled up more than that, and I would be cautious. And you want Ian Thomas to work out and be a sensation, but you also need to plan for an injury. You need to plan for him not being a sensation, and it might be worth trying to get somebody. And there's a lot of tight ends on the market this year in free agency. I just don't want the Panthers to just do something stupid and draft a tight end in the first round.
Yeah.
Is Moss going to go first round?
No.
I see him going like second or third. Yeah.
I don't know if there's any tight end that goes in the top half of the second round.
Have teams wised up for the last 10 years that that people have overdrafted tight ends?
What is the last big one? Was it honestly just
OJ Howard?
OJ Howard, was he the last first round tight end?
Him and Hunter Henry.
No, didn't the Lions drafted T.J. Hawkinson?
Yeah.
Last year, really.
Was he hurt all year?
No, he was badass for a little while.
While they may not be looked at drafting wise good, look at the value of a tight end. Look at a team like Baltimore, like the 2 teams in the Super Bowl this year, the Niners and the Chiefs. Yeah. A tight end is a key piece to have, and if you've got a good one, look at the Patriots for the dynasty they've had. I mean, they've had great tight end play. I mean, it's a good position to lock up good. I don't think the value's gone down at all.
No,
I just like haven't seen guys. Every year, you, Cody, and other people tell me about these tight ends that are going to be just the next great thing in the NFL, and none of them have become it. Hunter Henry has been hurt the whole time. The guy from Miami has been what's his name?
I forget his name. I know what you mean though.
Yeah, I know it's Miami. Then you get the guy, your boy, that's for Philly. That's going to be taking Zach. What's his name? Ertz. Yeah, he's been pretty good, but at the same time,
Dallas Goedert.
Yeah. Not game changing. OJ Howard disappeared, particularly in the Arians. It's just like I'm not saying the tight end is important, but all of these people that have drafted these number ones. Look, even go back to Eric Ebron. It has just been disaster after disaster, and I would much rather just get a guy in the third who's going to work and be serviceable than trying to slam dunk it in the first and putting so much stock in a tight end.
That makes sense what you're saying there. I get that.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I do think it's just so much of it is dependent on the player. Because if you look at the position, you're talking about a player that can block for your quarterback and can run routes and be a receiving threat. I mean, even not knowing what the tight end is going to do on a specific play, I mean, that's a valuable piece to your offense. And if you have a tight end that can do all those things effectively, I mean, if you have the guy and you know that you have the offensive coordinator that's going to be able to game plan for him and use him appropriately, then yeah, I mean, so much of it is situational. A lot of these guys just go to teams, and for whatever reason, whether it be the coach or just dumb luck or whatever happens, they just don't go to a situation that's designed to showcase their talent. And I think the same thing is true of what's the guy Tampa Bay just drafted a few years ago?
OJ Howard.
Yeah, OJ Howard. I do. OJ Howard was phenomenal at Alabama. And so was
T.J. And he was great last year. He was fantastic last year. He was terrible this year. Tree 50 brought out another one, Njoku.
Yeah, David Njoku. Well, Baker Mayfield damn near got that dude killed at the start of the year. Yeah, I remember the play too, and it was all on Baker Mayfield holding the ball too long.
Yeah. I want to call out Carl D too. Carl D says I'm wrong on Hunter Henry, and he said that Hunter Henry was hurt 1 year. And that, sir, is a lie. He played 15 games his rookie year. He started 10. He started 13 games his second year. He missed all of 2018, and he only played 12 games last year. So he has not been available. You know, he is the opposite of Greg Olsen, not available.
Yeah,
Mr. Unreliable.
Yeah,
I would say keeping the tight end I've been looking at in this year's draft, Hunter Bryant from Washington. That's a guy that you'd probably be able to pick up in the 3rd or 4th round, maybe even a little bit later, depending on how the board falls. I do agree with you, though, Tony. I mean, especially don't ever reach for a tight end. There are positions that you can reach for sometimes, offensive line, defensive line, maybe even corner, quarterback, obviously, if you know you have the player. But then there are some you kind of let fall to you. Tight end, running back is like that. To a lesser degree, safeties, which, it's all subjective, and it's all about what team is going to utilize you properly. But we definitely need more tight end love on the Carolina Panthers. There's too many options that are available to us that we just don't utilize enough.
Here's another name for you, which is crazy when you Google it. This was a top prospect, Jake Butt.
I remember you were talking about you wanted Jake Butt, so we could have the
that's
butthole,
what
right?
That's right, because we would have the
So you have the
butthole, right? You could jump in the
Get in the end
butthole. Jake Butt played a career 3 games.
But by the way, he also...
What happened to him? Like, did he die? Like, what happened to Jake Butt?
Before the
He
draft...
fell in the butthole.
But he was supposed to be a first-round pick, or first or second-round pick, and tore his ACL, and then he lost all that momentum, and the Broncos drafted him. But yeah, man, like I said, we just don't know. There's so much that goes into playing NFL football.
Right.
You just don't know what kind of...
This is dangerous. I'm Googling what happened to Jake Butt.
Yeah, that is dangerous.
Don't do that at work.
Screen share.
the other thing about the tight end position, man, is it's a very dependent position. Because, like I said, you're either going to be blocking or you're going to be catching the ball. And if you don't have a quarterback that can throw you the ball well, or you don't have a quarterback that throws you the ball, it makes you look bad. And if you're blocking and you don't have a running back that can run around a block, I mean, those are dependent things. So it's a difficult. It's like Cody said, you got to fall to the right place. I don't think that if Kelsey falls to the Panthers, that he's going to have the same kind of year he does, with Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball to him.
What I'll say is this. If we have Christian McCaffrey, and I'm not saying we'd reach for Moss, but we would have 2 players on our offense who come from championship DNA, right? So you have Randy Moss and McCaffrey's dad. What's his name? Ed McCaffrey.
Ed McCaffrey, yeah.
Both of them. I mean, not only would I feel like it'd bring a different level of press to our organization. But I feel like that, once again, you have these guys who have been prepared for this their entire lives, and they've been taught what it takes to be there. So, honestly, I like the idea of, and I'm not saying get rid of Ian Thomas. I think Ian Thomas has a big role, especially if we can do similar things to what, like I said, Lamar Jackson and their tight end situation up there in Baltimore was, or whatnot. It just depends upon what Joe Brady's plans are, but I do like the idea of a tight end this draft and somebody who can actually contribute. I don't think that means that Ian Thomas is gone or he's table scraps. I think he still has a role. It's just a matter of getting him reps. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely no reaching for a tight end. It's just not worked out very well for many of the people in the drafts here as of late.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Olsen was a first-round pick and was traded by the team that picked him in the first round.
Yeah. What, 3 years after he was drafted? When was he drafted?
Yeah.
2009?
He was
2009, then came here in 2011.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think. 2009. It's only 11 years. I mean, only 11 years, but we were talking about retirement. How old is it was Tony Gonzalez and now Antonio Gates? What was their age when they retired?
Well, Antonio Gates
Late
retired
30s?
like yesterday. He has to be like 97. No.
Antonio Gates, and then Ben Watson.
Jared Cook. He's pretty old. Jimmy
Cook
Graham.
old?
Jimmy Graham.
I tell you this though is that Greg Olsen never had the athleticism that Antonio Gates did in his entire. I'm gonna go. He's 39, almost 40. Antonio Gates was in June. He'll be 40. Who was the other one you want to
know? Tony Gonzalez and Ben Watson.
Oh, Ben Watson. He's still playing, right?
Yeah.
He's been playing since 2004. He's 39. And Tony Gonzalez now, who's been out of the league now for how many years? He played from 1997 to 2013.
6 years, okay.
So 12 years and 17. He had 17 total years, it says, and he is 43.
So Greg Olsen is
he's about to be 44.
And he's number 5 on the all-time receiving list for tight ends. That's kind of crazy to think about when you look at that list of tight ends. And Jason Witten even, if you look at that, that's something that's probably
he's 4th, right? Is he 4th?
Yeah, 5th.
Greg Olsen.
Yeah,
he's 5th.
But here's the thing about that list too. If you look at it, there's number 1 and number 2, and then there's like a huge drop off after that. Like 3, 4, and 5 are so far behind I think Shannon Sharp's like 3 or 4, right? I can't remember.
I didn't look.
I have to look it up. But either way, like I know there's a huge drop off from like 1 and 2, and then everybody after that is nowhere close to where they're at. The 1 and 2. So, matter of fact, I want to look it up right now.
Tony Gonzalez has 15,000 career receiving yards, and oh gosh, Greg Olsen has 8,500.
Half. But half. But what was you said he played 17 years, so that's 6 years, and let's just assume Tony Gonzalez. Let's take away the injury prone years. I mean, I think that there is a chance that Greg Olsen could be, if he wants to play for another 6 years. I feel like just based on that alone, I think he has.
Greg Olsen can't play for no 6 more years. He'll be running backwards. In 6 years, he'll be running backwards.
Hey man,
and he's not putting up 8,000 yards in 6 years.
Jason Witten is
no way.
When you look at Jason Witten, he's not very athletic.
No, I think Greg Olsen is just savvy at this point. Hey, I like Greg, man. He's a good player, but he's always been slow as dirt. Even when he was fast, he was not very fast. Or the way he ran made him look slower than he was. He's always ran with snowshoes on. He's been a high stepper his whole life.
I don't think there's anything Jason Witten can do that Greg Olsen can't.
Oh, I agree.
So
that's what I was saying.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just about like, especially when you reach that point in your career, it's just about doing your part. I mean, no one goes into a football team anymore to be the number one guy, the dude.
I just figured it out. Why Greg Olsen is scared of the booth.
Why's that?
He's got no fucking hair. He's losing his hair, and he's self-conscious about it.
Oh, so what? He's also a multi-millionaire. You can have...
But he wears a beanie in the summertime. He wears a beanie in the damn summertime.
Dude, have you seen Deion Sanders and Brian Urlacher? Those dudes were bald, and they have like full heads of hair now. I think Greg can afford whatever those dudes.
I think he needs
to wear that helmet all the time.
I think he needs this year to get his hair game right. That's why he's not ready to go to the booth.
Respect to the man. Hey, get that man flowing.
Get them plugged.
Yeah, I respect it, man.
I can play with this hair if I want to.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. So the Super Bowl is past. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City, Kansas State.
Yeah, they're in Missouri, right?
Yeah, they're in Missouri.
It's right over the line.
Did y'all hear about Trump?
I know.
Who said to the great state?
Yeah,
everybody wanted to talk crap about that. I'm not here to defend Trump, but like, let's be honest.
Nobody knows.
85% of the entire nation would have made the exact same mistake.
Yeah.
Granted, they're not president of the United States.
And isn't half the city like on one side of the line and half the city like
there's Kansas? Yeah. And they're apparently like rivals beyond measure. Like they are literally trying to steal each other's businesses by like they'll contact businesses on the other side of the border saying, "Hey, listen, we'll give you guys this
tax break
incentive to come over here." Yeah. And so there's apparently like a very honestly like a very bad rivalry between the two. It's almost, I sit there and think like old Western towns that just hate each other. That's what I feel like. That's what I imagine when I think about Kansas City.
Wouldn't it be awesome if Arrowhead, if the 50-yard line was on the state border? Kind of like when you go to Carowinds, you can stand on both sides.
Dude, that would be insane. Every time they cross the 50, they're in a new state.
Oh, oh yeah. All right,
and all the way to Missouri, man. Shit.
It was a great Super Bowl. I do want to say my last point on the Super Bowl, guys, is why the fuck is it on Sunday?
I agree.
Why
at least it was over at an early time this year. It wasn't over at like 11:45. You know,
so that you can all pray at church the morning before.
I need a Saturday Super Bowl. We hosted a Super Bowl party at my house, and I think I want to keep doing it. You know what I'm saying? And as a way of not spending money and not having to go out, it's nice having people come over. I was dragging ass on Monday, bro. Dragging ass, and it's just not right.
See, I tell you what, I'd rather have rather than have a Super Bowl Saturday. I'd rather keep it on Sunday and just make the day after a national holiday.
Yeah, they talk about that. That's never happening.
Oh, it's never going to happen. Yeah, it's never going to happen. But I'd rather have that.
Or they could start it at 4:00. That would be all right with me too.
Well, it does start at 4 for most of the world, right? Like, you know, everybody else, because we're Eastern. It's gonna be we're gonna be the latest because we're starting. You know, if they started, let's say they did start it at like 3:00. Well, it's 12:00 for a lot of people on Sunday, and that means they're just getting out of church or something crazy like that. So it's really odd because you really have to think about the time zone situation as well. I honestly think 6:30 is the perfect time because it's not too late for us. And it's not too early for somebody who's on the West Coast, and it's 3:00. Mm-hmm. You know, it still allows there to be some sort of a get together and before, you know, or after, you know, your morning festivities for Sunday, whatever they may be at that moment. So I like the idea of it being at 6. I can personally vouch for the idea of saying let's do Saturday instead.
That I think is the solution. Right there.
Yeah, it's the only option. But then you get rid of the Super Bowl Sunday, and then Super Bowl Saturday. So I mean, I guess you gotta. At this point, I think it's just ritual to be on that Sunday. So,
dude, if we're never gonna get rid of daylight savings time, yeah, we're not changing the Super Bowl.
Hey, listen, Arizona has got it right with the daylight savings time.
How does that work? Like, so if you're in Arizona when the rest of the world changes time, I don't get how that works.
Half the year you're Pacific time, the other half you're going to be Mountain Central or Mountain Standard Time.
So you just change what time zone you're in, basically.
No, they don't recognize it at all. They just basically say their own time zone, I guess. Okay, you know, it's this time for. Yeah, I had to learn that. You know, I've worked at Wells Fargo and I've worked now in you know in my debt collection services that I do now. And you know, you talk to a lot of people over there, and you learn that all about the country and the time zones and how certain states
explain it to me because I don't understand it. Explain.
So Arizona does not recognize daylight savings time. Now, the majority of it, I think there are certain areas that do for some reason randomly, but for the most part, Arizona does not. So if you call Arizona and it is right now, I'm not sure exactly which half of the year their Pacific time. But let's just say it's Pacific time right now for them. Well, when we spring forward, well, all of a sudden now it's their Mountain time because they're switching, but they don't recognize the spring forward, so they're going to be stay at the same time, which makes sense for the most part because why even do it at this point? Because you're just switching back and forth for no reason. And
it's something they did during the Depression, I think.
Well, and there's so many different people that say different things, like so they say that it has a lot to do with
like farming, work productivity.
farming for for people to be able to have enough time in the day. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then somebody else said that it has a lot to do with the kids being going to school in the mornings, being able to have daylight. I just haven't actually heard the official. I'm sure there is one out there, but
I can tell you it's damn awful when it gets black as night at 4:55.
Oh God! Well, and that's what it's supposed to prevent, which is funny, is that it's supposed to prevent it's supposed to extend the daylight instead of like making it just constantly going. But it doesn't help when it's like 5 o'clock and you're still getting off dark. So it's no point to it at that point.
No. So real quick, yeah, I know, right? Real quick before we move on, Joey Esquivel has blessed us with a little poem, so I'm gonna read it off for him. Oh, I wish I were a Carolina Panther. That's what I really want to be, because if I were a Carolina Panther, I could take cheerleaders home with me.
Oh, yeah. Oscar Mayer.
Yeah, baby. Like I'm into it.
You can take that to the Cannes Film the Carolyn Cannes Film Festival,
and down to Tampa Bay.
Okay, all right, guys, we are done with the C3 Panthers podcast. We got some ice up picks to get to real quick, and then let's get the hell on. My name's Tony Dunn. You can follow us every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. live, where we keep it going and keep talking about the Panthers until we run out of gas. And we are out of gas right now, but we got some ice in our cups, some ice cold ice up picks in our homage to Steve Smith, who's chomping at the bit to go.
Cody, I feel like you've got to do the next one. I think I know what you're probably going to do.
Yeah, and I'm not going to make it drawn out. Mine is short and sweet. The Democratic National Committee is the fucking definition of ineptitude, and they are ridiculous, and I'm icing them up. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Oh, man. Somebody else go.
I'll go real quick.
It's going to be a political night, isn't it?
It is.
I'm not going politics. I had a politics discussion or political discussion the other day. I'm done with politics for the week. So, I guess I kind of got mine in the moment. My mic went out earlier when we were talking about if the idea changed about Greg Olsen and the Panthers parting ways. And after listening to you guys talk about it and finding out more information, I agree with you 100%, CK. I think this is all just a play of words, and I think that Carolina messed that up. So I'm going to ice up the Panthers organization for trying to trick us into believing that there was a mutual separation between Greg Olsen and the Panthers, because, if he's going out trying to play in other teams, there obviously wasn't a mutual separation. So to the Panthers organization for that decision of that choice of words, I guess I could say, ice up.
All right. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was, I feel like I have to double down, and I know we don't do this, but I have to. We were talking slightly about it, and it is going to be a political night.
Oh, no.
Mine might be a little more drawn out. How idiotic do you have to be as an organization to do this 2 years in a row? And just so listen, I think we all have our opinions on Donald Trump, whether they be good or bad, but this is not about that. But here's the part of it. If you hate Donald Trump so much as a Democratic national convention, as your Democratic party does, right? If you do that, why in the world do you put yourself in a position to try to screw the same candidate over who probably had a better shot of winning last year or 4 years ago against Donald Trump again this year?
Oh, yeah.
This is absolutely, listen, I consider myself middle of the pack, right? I have a lot of conservative views, but I think that there's extremism on both sides, and I cannot stand how divided we get, right? But when you are trying to paint your party as like, we're the party that does everything right, we're honest and we want to care about the people and all that, you are doing a crap job when you sit there and you tear down your own party members who actually have a shot of doing something. It's just astronomical. You know, if you haven't heard the news, basically the Democratic National Convention has tried to find a way to rig the caucuses in favor of somebody other than Bernie Sanders. And so there's more to it. I definitely encourage you to do your research and make your own opinion about it all. But it is big news, and it's just ineptitude, as Cody says, at its best. So to the entire political situation involved there, and the amount of people who just are ignorant enough to try this again, ice up, son, ice up.
You remember just a few years ago, people right before Trump was elected, they were predicting that if Hillary won, the dissolution of the Republican Party. Right now is that I almost feel like the damn Democrats could dissolve as a party because they have there's no vision, there's no coalescing, there's no leadership, there's nothing there right now. It's the party of other. It's the non-Republican party and the anti-Trump party, I guess. And that's not even enough. So it doesn't even matter. Poor Bernie, it wouldn't matter. Go ahead, mark it down. Trump's going to win. It don't matter who
after
runs
this debacle. I mean, you're basically handing the election back to the guy at this point. And Carl D asked, you know, and this isn't a political podcast, but he asked, how do you know it wasn't the Republicans? Plenty of evidence shows that it's not. There is a lot of evidence that's pointing to the fact that this is a Democratic National Convention. One of them being that one of the culprits is actually the wife of one of the candidates in the Democratic race right now. So there's a lot of evidence proving that. But once again, you know, this isn't about politics. It's just to say, listen, if you guys cannot get your stuff together, how do you expect to unseat the president that is so sorely hated in the current status of the country right now?
And really, all it is just to say this: no matter who you support, no matter what you believe, whoever wins should be the winner. It doesn't matter if it's a DNC or the RNC. No one should be getting away and trying to stifle people that are actually winning. And Tony may be right, but if Bernie is able to get past the DNC, which yet that remains to be seen. If it does, you have a populist versus a populist. So it'll definitely be far more interesting than whatever the hell Hillary Clinton tried to do in 2016. All
right, so I don't know. I feel bad for my ice up pick now because he's been diagnosed with cancer. But Rush Limbaugh gets the Freedom Medal. Ugh. Medal of Freedom, huh?
Well, you gotta remember who's in office.
I know, but it's just crazy. I'm gonna ice up my stock market buy today, as I pulled up my stock market app. I sold some stock on Micron. By the way, I was listening to Mad Money, and Jim Cramer was talking about how he had recently spoke with David Tepper about the coronavirus, and how David Tepper says until this thing shakes out, can be unsure of the market. He was very bullish a couple of months ago, and now there's so much uncertainty. Anyway, the market went up today. Strangely, it shouldn't be going up, but it bounced back. But one of the stocks that I have been eyeing took a little dip, and so I had sold this company that David Tepper actually made a fortune on, called Micron. So I had a little bit of cash, and I bought it. And if I would have just waited 5 minutes, 5 more minutes, it just kept going down. Not like a ton, but I was so pissed at myself. So I'm icing myself up for not having the patience to wait till closer to closing. But that's it. The name of the stock is ICE, Intercontinental Exchange. I don't even know what the hell it does, really. It's like like a trading network or something. But the stock market's kicking ass right now, and a lot of companies are beating ass. And Tesla, man, Tesla's the company that's blowing everybody out. Too late, you missed the boat on Tesla, guys. All right, that's the C3 Panthers podcast. Ice up pulling the trigger too quickly. And make sure you tune in to us next week, Tuesday night, 9 p.m. to talk about the Carolina Panthers. My name's Tony Dunn, at @Cat_Chronicles. Cody Lashney, how can they find you?
At CODYLAC on Twitter. And listen, guys, I'm going to continue to say it. I've been pouring a lot of effort and a lot of love into these draft tech comments that I've been writing. Please check them out. like them and share them on Twitter. Share them with everybody. We're really trying to grow the website and make it bigger than it is. And we're killing it right now. And there's a brand new player. Like I said, I did a write-up on Andrew Thomas. Go check it out tomorrow at drafttech.com. And first and second round picks for the Carolina Panthers with a little write-up about both of them and the Houston Texans, because I write about them also, dude. So,
all right, Bat Daddy, how can they get after you?
Just like that, man, at the Bat Daddy 52 on Twitter, or you can check out my other show, Super Civil Servants Podcast. Drops every Monday. Check us out.
And CK.
So you can find me on Twitter at CodizzleAllen, CodizzleAllen. Cody and I, obviously, we're going to be at some point here soon starting to drop content in the middle of the week that has to do with get to better know a Carolina Panthers potential draft pick. And just be looking up for that.
For everyone's sake.
We're working on some content to try to make sure that we fill this week during the off season, because you don't have our post game, podcast to look forward to. So we're going to try to fill your week out a little bit with, even if it's just a little 10-minute video or podcast and just something for you guys to look forward to. And if you have any ideas about what those can be, feel free to reach out to me or Tony or Cody or anybody or even Greg, and we'll see what we can put together for you. But just keep an eye out for the YouTube channel to see those things drop from hopefully on a weekly basis. But looking forward to providing you guys something more to look forward to.
All right, that's the show, guys. We'll be back next Tuesday, and before then, hopefully, with some of those shorts. So send us your content, your questions. Remember, call in throughout the week, and we can even put some of the calls into the shorts. The number's 252-228-5098. We'll check you guys out later.
Keep pounding.
Keep pounding.
Keep pounding.
Yeah.
How do I end this?